The Iraqis raised questions about that and said that's an unrealistic thing to do. That's incredible. What has that got to do with disarmament? What do undergraduate students have to do with disarmament? You can certainly interview the postgraduates for the master and doctor's degree in science if you think they're involved in any kind of weapons development. And think this was the level of non-compliance. The UN has also reported that every year since 1998, the Iraqis have been in full compliance with the yearly UN inspection team. I was in Iraq and met UN forces. They were right there in Baghdad, or personnel. I shouldn't say forces, personnel. Well, now at this point you can do one of two things. You can stop with a liberal complaint and say, all the reasons they've given for wanting to attack Iraq are stupid, are wrong, are false. So aren't they stupid? Aren't they so stupid? That's what you could say. Or you can take a radical analysis. You can make a radical analysis and say, no, look at it in this larger context that I've been trying to give you tonight. They're not stupid. You're stupid if you think they're stupid. You're stupid if you think your enemies are stupid. I know that all of North America is full of liberal intellectuals who love to say how stupid their leaders are. In the U.S., I can tell you, everybody in the U.S., everybody's making jokes about how stupid George Bush is. I tell my fellow countrymen and women, I say, you know, we keep electing these stupid leaders. Does this have any reflection on our intelligence? I thought Canadians would like that joke. You hear this all the time. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time we give less emphasis to how stupid these people supposedly are and give more attention to how vicious and relentless and uncompromising they are. Please. There are, in fact, very compelling reasons why they're targeting Iraq. The fact that they don't tell us those reasons doesn't mean those reasons may not exist. First, there's the one I've just mentioned and talked about, the global strategic reason, which is to make sure that no country gets out of this closed, fixed global system of multinational corporate capital expropriation at terms that are totally favor the global financial investors at the expense of the people. The struggle at that global strategic level is between those people who say that the land, the labor, the natural resources, the markets, the technologies, and the wealth of nations belongs to a few, that they're there for the expropriation and for the further and further enrichment of a few. They're there for the Dick Cheneys who made $260 million last year and it wasn't enough. He wants $360 million this year. They want more and more. Wealth is their addiction. Brothers and sisters, the worst addiction in North America, the most dangerous addiction is wealth. It's not drugs. They got more money. They got more money than they know what to do with. They got more money. They got more money than they could spend in 1,000 lifetimes. They've got more money and all they want is more and more and more and more of it. They're addicts. They're dangerous, dangerous addicts. And this is what we're fighting against. Now, so there's that global strategic goal, which is to get Iraq back in line as an impoverished, broken country, just as they broke Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia was another case. Right there in the middle of Europe, a very large country, 80% of its economy was still publicly owned, a standard of living that was still high, with an elaborate system of public services and human services. Now it's been broken up into small right-wing republics. Everything's deregulated. Everything's been privatized. Everybody is poor. They're poor now in Bosnia. They're poor now in Macedonia. They're getting poor in Montenegro and Serbia. Poor, poverty, privatize, deregulate, get them down to being the peasants. Someday, if we try and hope and pray enough, they'll be lining up to work for 15 cents an hour. And they're getting close to that already. So there's that goal of keeping that whole system of capital expropriation. It's between those who say all of that belongs to them and those of us who say all of that belongs to the people and the human communities of this planet. That's the fight between those two. There's a second reason, more immediate, particular. There's the old colonial natural resource oil reason, expropriation of a particular resource. Iraq has a reserve of 45 billion barrels of oil. At $25 US dollars a barrel, that's $1 trillion. That's a lot of money. And not a drop of that oil is owned by the Bush family or Dick Cheney or Exxon or these guys. It infuriates them. There have been French and Russian concessions made to the French and the Russians, but the U.S. wants to get in there and really grab it all and give the French and the Russians their 8% or whatever. So there's that to be considered also, direct colonial grab. There's a third reason. Just like with George I, there are very compelling issues that have been going on in the United States that have been redounding most unfavorably upon the Bush administration. Back during George I's day, it was the savings and loan scandal, a $1 trillion ripoff by people strategically placed of the public treasure, which U.S. taxpayers will be paying for generations to come. That was getting out in the national media. George I was facing the prospect of maybe 2, possibly 3 of his own sons going to jail. It all got blown right off the front page. It got blown right out of the news once he pursued that war against Iraq. And today, incredibly so, the very same thing is happening. It's the very same issues. Not the savings and loan, but it's Exxon and WorldCom and corporations that have been plundering worker pension funds, that have been plundering their own employees, that have been plundering the investor class. It's a very interesting case where capitalism is such a self-devouring beast that it can devour itself. And the state, one of the functions of the state is to advance it's a rather contradictory thing. It's an interesting thing. One of the functions of the capitalist state is to advance the opportunities for devouring and expropriation. Another function it has is to contain that and stop it sometimes when it threatens, when the parasites threaten to destroy the organism upon which they feed. Argentina is a very good example of the failure of the capitalist state to keep the most pernicious, avaricious elements of that class from devouring the entire financial social structure. People's life savings gone up and stolen from them. So you had this happening, and because it was the investor class itself that was getting victimized in the U.S., a lot of this was getting in the press, and it wasn't looking good. It wasn't looking good even personally for Bush and Cheney. Bush with his relationships with Harkins and Cheney with Halliburton, 2 big corporations, where the same thing was happening. Stock prices artificially pumped up so that the value of their stock could go all the way up. And then with insider trading just before the slide down, they sold it off at incredible profits and then left everybody else holding worthless paper. Both Bush and Cheney did this. Both of them lied about not knowing anything about it. There's evidence they were in on it. Of course they were. That, too, blown right out of the news, right out of the paper. Who's going to talk about George Bush, world leader, world statesman, commander-in-chief,